Hello, friends. It's Nancy with Astrology and Angel Mediums again, here with another tarot educational video. And I hope that you guys are enjoying these. Today, I'm going to be talking about the swords as a suit. So I'm sorry, I'm zipping up my jacket because sometimes it hits the table and it makes a noise. And I'm still kind of getting over this little weird head cold thing. So I may be clearing my throat a little bit. And hopefully I won't have too many of like the coughing fits and things like that. So the Suit of Swords is one of these that I think a lot of people tend to have a hard time with because it is the suit that really focuses on struggle and strife, and essentially it's the mental suit. So it really talks about the mind, it talks about communication, it talks about our words, it talks about our connection, and how we share what is going on within our minds with others. And so I like to look at it as necessary because, again, not all of life is always positive or beneficial or easy. And our mind is one of these things that we are constantly utilizing. And so it's nice to have something within all of the tarot that allows us to kind of focus on some of those more mental things that we are going to experience if we're living life, such as like anxiety, overthinking, the logical mind, our truth, a sense of empowerment when it comes to how we connect with others in our life. And so just like the other suits, there's always going to be the beginning that starts with an ace, and we move all the way through to the court cards with the page, the knight, the queen, and the king. So if we talk about what the Suit of Swords is really kind of seen as, or kind of used as in a lot of different ways, I think a lot of people struggle with the energy because it is a little bit more intense. I mean, we can even see some of the key words here. With the Ace of Swords, it starts the suit. And so we're getting new ideas and, clarity on belief. We're, kind of seeing that door kind of opening towards what it is that we believe in. There may be some communication breakthroughs. It can be very much about recognizing and realizing the truth in a situation. So to me, the Ace of Swords is not just the door opening up to the suit, it's also allowing us to have a sense of clarity when it comes to what is going on. So and then we move on to the two, and we have a decision that we have to make. Now, when I think of this card, I also look at it as like maybe we're refusing to see something because typically with the symbolism on this card is the person has a blindfold on, has the two swords kind of crossing over their heart. So to me, this is very indicative. They have their back to the water and the moon. So I think it's very indicative of, they have kind of closed themselves off intuitively. So it's difficult for them to kind of see what is going on. Maybe there's stressful decisions. Maybe they're being torn between their choices. There is a sense of difficulty and challenges that tends to kind of come from that energy. So moving on, we have the Three of Swords, which is one of these cards that I think is kind of infamous because a lot of people see the imagery and they see the three hearts kind of stabbing, or three swords kind of stabbing the heart. And essentially this is a card that talks about sadness and isolation and heartbreak and pain and loss. So it can talk about betrayal and conflict and kind of something involving the thoughts that we have about the people that surround us, especially when it comes to some of those interpersonal relationships. So this is one of those cards that's seen as like unhappiness and grief and sorrow and things of that nature. So it is very much associated with pain. So while the threes in the other suits may be more expansive and in the sense kind of like abundance in like something is growing, this is more of like something has been lost because the growth is maybe not moving the way that we thought it was going to. Moving on to the Four of Swords, this is known as a card that is coming after the pain that we've experienced and suffered. And so it is very much a card of like taking some time out to recuperate from the pain that we've experienced. Fours are always about stability and grounding and like really finding our foundation in some ways. And I think the four in the swords is definitely that sort of energy, because it's saying, hey, you've been through like this difficult thing that maybe has challenged a lot of the things that you believe in. And so now you just need some time to rest. You need some time for peace. You need some time to kind of introspect and figure out what it is you want to do moving forward. So very much a card of like resting, recuperating, just breathing, taking time out to just kind of reconnect to yourself. Now, the Five of Swords, like most of the fives in all of the tarot deck, especially in the suits, is a card of conflict, of challenges, of, feeling a sense of being overcome by your situation. And so this can be very much a card of like defeat. As we can see, he's kind of like got his swords, the people are kind of walking away. So there is kind of this sense of like maybe there's a lack of communication, maybe there's aggression. I like to look at this as a very much like win or lose kind of card, as in it doesn't really matter what's kind of happening in the situation, because it's almost like a stalemate, so to speak. And so things are just really not going to work the way that you thought they were going to. So it can have very negative connotations, because it is very much a card of like being very disempowered, and then also having that energy of the challenges and obstacles and changes and conflict. So there may be this kind of sense of like underhanded behavior or a lack of communication is really what I like to look at when it comes to the five. Now, if we move on to the six, this is a card that to me really symbolizes like, having to kind of get away. Maybe there's a sense of transition. It is very much about healing, just giving ourselves an opportunity to kind of get where we need to get. To me, it can talk about overcoming those hardships. It can talk about finding stability, but by having to make some drastic transitions or changes in order to get there. I always look at this card as like my family, my mother specifically came here from Mexico when she was pregnant with me. And so to me, it very much represents that kind of energy of like leaving everything that you've known behind in order to kind of afford yourself a different or maybe better opportunity in the future. So I look at it as a card of like crossing water, right? Traveling overseas, maybe feeling a little bit like you need a break and you need to take some time out to recuperate who you are, but not in the sense of like the Four of Swords. It's a little bit more established, because it's asking you to make the choice of how to take care of yourself versus being forced to take care of yourself, if that makes sense. Now, the Seven of Swords, this is a card that can be seen as one of like secrets and someone being sneaky, kind of like cheating, lying, theft, dangerous or risky behavior. There's like, kind of like someone getting away with something. And I think that the energy with this card can be a little bit challenging, because like a lot of the sevens in the tarot, I feel like there's this sense of there's a spiritual lesson to be learned here, but there is also the challenge of adding the energy of the suit, which can be of struggle and strife. And, it's like the mental energy, which sometimes we feel like we have to, do something to get away with things, and it is a part of life. And so sometimes, this can be very much like someone's just not being quite so honest with you as you are with them. Someone is maybe being a little bit underhanded in some ways. So whenever this energy does come up, I'm always like very aware of trying to see where this trickery may be. And sometimes the trickery can just be us kind of fooling ourselves and not being quite so honest with us, or feeling like we can make a break for it, so to speak. Moving on to the Eight of Swords. Now, this can be a card of like, we can see she looks trapped. It is very much a card of like restriction, feeling a little bit helpless, feeling a little bit hopeless, feeling very like victimized, kind of feeling like we don't have any power in our situation. So it can be very much a card of, again, that sense of like restriction, feeling a lot of pressure, feeling like things are not really working the way that we thought they were going to. And again, because this is the Suit of Swords, it can feel a little bit overwhelming because it's the mind that is feeling this way. It doesn't always mean that this is what's physically going on in our lives. It's just our mind can kind of make us really focus on these things. And so we can feel a little bit paralyzed by fear or have those anxieties really show up. Now, the 9 of Swords is, again, one of these cards that I think is pretty, well known in different ways, because it is very much a card of like fear and anxieties and those like overthinking kind of attributes that have kind of come from the 8 of Swords, where we're kind of like, well, I don't really have an escape and I don't really have things that are helping me move forward. The 9s in tarot to me always say like, we're there. We're getting to the end of the finish line here, but there's something that we need to let go of. And so again, this is very much a card of like deep unhappiness and negativity and, a lot of stress, feeling very burdened. It can feel very much like, there is a lot of anxiety that's coming up for us at this time. And so it can really focus on what is actually real in your situation, what needs to be released, what thoughts are actually your truth. Because at the end of the day, I feel like the Swords really are encouraging us to understand our personal truth in different ways. And sometimes it's not as easy to understand those parts of ourselves, especially when we're having to kind of unlearn or readjust or really grow out of certain lessons and certain things that no longer make sense for what we're trying to do. Now, finally, out of the numbered cards, oh my God, I can't talk, is the 10 of Swords. And so this card is like saying, look, see, he's been through the worst. He's been backstabbed, he has, had all of the failure, all of the ruin, everything's kind of happened here. It is very much a card of like endings and defeat. But one of the things that I really like to look at when it comes to this card that maybe not a lot of other people like to look at is that it's saying, all right, you've already had everything happen to you. And 10s to me are an opportunity for us to rise up and move into the next thing fully, because we've let go of everything that was kind of holding us back. And so I like to look at the 10 as an opportunity for us to truly heal mentally, logically, analytically, and to really step more fully into our power. So while it may feel like failure and ruin and exhaustion and like rock bottom, I feel like it's very much almost an energy very similar to the Tower in the major cards, where it's kind of saying like, okay, we stripped away all of the stuff that was holding you back. So now you need to pull yourself together and get yourself going, because what happened. What are you going to do about it moving forward? But that's just how I prefer to read the card. Obviously, it's very dependent on what other cards are kind of showing up, what sort of things are happening there. So if we're talking about the court cards with the Page of Swords, the pages, again, are always going to be the new energy. It's that childlike wonder. It's the little fool, so to speak. And so the page is kind of curious. He's getting out there. He's trying to figure out what's going on. Maybe he's like trying to figure out how to communicate. Maybe he's ready to kind of go out into the world and explore what his truth is. So there is this beautiful sense of curiosity that comes from the Page of Swords. And if we move to the Knight of Swords, this is someone that's like a little bit more established. There's a lot of opportunities coming this way. It is very much a card of like, hurry up and get there, do what you need to do. It can be a very strong and assertive sort of energy, because when I think of the Knights, I think of this energy of someone who is very aware of what they're willing to fight for. To me, the Knights also really talk about messages coming through. So maybe this is some sort of communication that's trying to come in for you, whether it is, the truth or not is really going to depend on what other cards may be happening. And so I feel like the Knight here is also represented by someone who is very willing to go after what it is that they want and can be very direct and honest in a lot of ways. Now, with the Suit of Swords, especially with the court cards, there's going to be this sense of like truth and empowerment and justice that tends to kind of come through. As we can see, swords are also very prevalent in the Justice card, which again is all about that balance and that fairness. And so here it's like, again, we have to understand that truth isn't always going to be something that makes everybody happy. My truth is not going to be something that aligns with your truth, perhaps. And your truth may not be something that I may always receive as easily. So we have to kind of understand that truth doesn't always mean it's the truth of the situation. I think it's more of just understanding that it's like our personal truth, especially when it comes to the Suit of Swords. Now moving on to, the Queen of Swords. She's going to be coming off as someone who's a little bit cold, calculating in some ways, just because out of the other queens, she is going to be more in that higher mind. So this is going to be more analytical, very fair with her judgment, someone who's very decisive. I feel like the biggest thing with her is that she can kind of come off as a little bit blunt, astute, a little bit acerbic in some ways. But I do think that the biggest gift that she can give us is the gift of her words, her truth, her fairness, and being able to kind of be very perceptive as to what is happening. So when I think of this queen, I think it's very much this energy of understanding what is actually going on without adding a lot of the things that may hold us back in certain ways. And finally, we have the King of Swords, which he's very much about the truth. He's very much about structure and routine, as most of the kings. And he can be very much like head over heart, a little bit unemotional, a little bit authoritative. So this may be someone that can kind of come off as a little bit harsh, in the sense of they're really just going to kind of get to the truth of the matter. And because of this, they can give very balanced judgments and also really help us understand what is going on around us, because they're kind of cutting away from anything that may be confused by the emotional state of a situation. So that's kind of the gist of what I feel, and kind of using this like learning tarot cards deck, which kind of gives you some keywords to kind of go off of, especially if you're struggling with understanding those energies. I think it's good to kind of have a basic understanding of how the Suit of the Swords works, as well as kind of the number influences and how the energy slightly shifts because of the elemental energy of the swords, which is air, which I don't think I mentioned earlier. So air, so this is going to rule over Libra, Gemini, and Aquarius energies. And as you can see, we have a lot of those kind of symbols here. If you're not familiar with astrological symbols, sorry, I'm trying to find one of each. Here is the sign of Gemini, here we have the sign of Aquarius, and here we have the sign of Libra. And so we're really given a lot of this energy to kind of focus on that. I think I got this all jacked up over here. And so we have the alchemical element of air, which again is about communication, technology, connection, the mental self, and things like that. So be very mindful of that also influencing how the Suit of Swords may be speaking to you. So I hope that this makes sense. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you're enjoying this. And as always, please take care, stay safe, and make good choices. Have a good one. Bye.